Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And in the topsy-turvy world, which is South Africa, this crazy, corrupt gangster state, things just get crazier and crazier. I had an email from Elsevier John about what's going on with Eskom property. And I'm going to say very little about this because Elsevier talks about this in the video that's attached. And all I'm going to say is that if you have a property, it looks now like basically the ANC cadres or ANC mates can literally come in and just take your property, even if it's one that you own or even if it's one that you rent, and they can just kick you off your property. This is quite an extraordinary story. And it involves Eskom, unsurprisingly. I'm going to say no more, but listen to what Elsevier has to say. Please remember to register on lovinglifetv.com to be kept informed. We carry videos there that we cannot carry here on YouTube. Please remember also to register or subscribe to Loving Life on YouTube. Please like this video, please share this video, and above all, please stay safe. Bye for now.
Good morning, I'm Elsevier. I'm a Director of Patriots for Minorities. And the purpose of this video is to report to our followers and supporters regarding the issue of Redan. Now, the issue of Redan has not yet been finalized. It's pending, so don't expect me to give you a final outcome here. But a lot of people contacted me. They're very curious of what is Redan, what's going on Redan, what is Redan about. So I decided to make this short video. At this stage we already have 2 court orders, so we're making progress, but slow progress. But yes, I am in a position to make some statements here of the matter as it is at present. First I want to tell you where Redan is. Redan is a village. It's not a registered township or developed township in the real sense of South African law. It's situated on farmland, so it's a village situated between Meyerton and Vereniging in the Vaal Triangle. Redan was established around about 1933 to 1936. I'm not sure about the date, but that was the time period in which the Klip power station was established. It was when the gold mines in the Witwatersrand needed a lot of electricity for the processes following gold mining, and they needed more electricity, and the power station was erected for that purpose. Close by, on the same land actually as the power station, was the Springfield coal mine. So the Springfield coal mine supplied Klip power station with coal, and in the steam process electricity was produced. The people that worked on the mine and on the power station stayed in a village that was created specifically for this purpose, and that village name was Redan. Now, in the 80s, Klip power station became redundant. It was closed, the coal mine was closed, and the steam towers of the power station were demolished. So Eskom decided to rent out the houses in Redan to pensioners, people with low income, old age people, etc. So during all these years, people rented these houses, and Eskom maintained the houses, and they supplied water, electricity, all the services, and these lower income people rented these houses and paid the water and electricity towards Eskom. So everything went fine, except for the fact that the place became a little bit neglected during the past few years. Eskom didn't keep up the place as it should, but apart from that, everything went as normal. Until December 2020, when the tenants of this village received a notice or a very short letter from Eskom says that Eskom is not going to maintain it anymore. They ceded all their rights in Redan. In January, the newcomer arrived at Redan, a guy by the name of Barnabas Dube. Now, actually one of his companies were involved in it, but he told the residents that he is the owner, he's the new owner. And he raised the rent with 100%. Then in January, Eskom wrote them, the tenants again, a letter. And although they repeated that they ceded all their rights, this letter said that they still can recover arrears for the rent. So if you know anything about the law, if you ceded all your rights, you don't retain some of your rights. That was very confusing, but if that's not enough, in February another company stepped in and say, now you sign agreements with us, and once again the rent was raised, which bring the total increase of rent from December to February to 200% raise in rent. Now, most of the people can't afford this extreme rent. Little annoying things happen, like if you rent a house with Eskom that included your garage, now suddenly you have to pay separately for your garage. This guy also erected a boom gate at the entrance, and now you must pay a permit of 150 Rand for your vehicle to be able to enter and leave the premises. So things drastically changed since January. One of the most annoying incidents that happened in Redan, and a lot of the residents were witness to this, is the eviction of one of the residents there, and that guy is also our first applicant, and he is Mr. Wesselgreef. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. He was in his house, he heard some noise outside, he looked out of the window, and he saw that his fence were cut. People entered his yard through the cut fence, and they were busy in his outbuilding searching through some of his stuff. So we went outside and tell these guys, what are you doing with my things? Get off my property. And instead of getting off his property, they stepped into his house. They were smoking dagga. One guy threw down his dagga zol on the ground, and he killed it with his feet, stepping the ash into the carpet. Very disrespectful towards Mr. Greef's property. Mr. Greef couldn't get these guys out. They were very arrogant. They swore at him. They were under the influence of dagga, which made them very brave. And he's an old man of 64 years. So he called the police, and the police came to his house, and they asked these guys, what are you doing? So these guys caught Mr. Barnabas Dube, who claims to be the owner of the land. Mr. Dube came to the scene and he assured the police that he is the owner of Redan now, and he decides who stays there and who don't stay there, and Mr. Greef is not one of the people that stay there. So the police helped Mr. Dube to evict Mr. Greef on that Sunday. He left with a few personal belongings, his clothes on his body, and is now sleeping in his car next to the river. He lost most of his possessions, which was left off behind at the premises. Yeah, and they didn't even had a court order to evict him, and the police shouldn't be involved in evictions like this. So once again we see that police overplayed their hand. So they also went, by the way, they also went to some of the other residents, but they didn't succeed with the total eviction, but the people are living in fear that they will be evicted in the very same manner as Mr. Greef. So they approached Patriot for Minorities to assist them, because we fight for the human rights and human dignity of minority groups. We started investigating this because we couldn't understand it, and we started looking at deed searches, and we saw that Mr. Dube is not the owner, Eskom is the owner. So there went in a lot of investigation, and at the end we decided to approach the Land Claims Court by using the ESTA Act. So ESTA is the extension of Tenant Security Act. It's the act that prevents tenants to stay on and not be illegally evicted from land. So we used that act in the Land Claims Court, and that matter is now pending. The first appearance was on the 7th of April. The court said all the parties must be present by the 16th, and they must explain why these tenants should not be protected by this court. Now, a lot of different versions came before court. It is absolutely clear that all the role players are not truthful, and that complicated the matter. We have confidence that the judge is not absolutely ignorant about what's going on here, and that justice will prevail at the end. But the order he made on Friday was that Mr. Andre de Ruyter must report to the Land Claims Court on certain issues, which is now in dispute between the parties. And the first, let me just get it in front of me. The first is, he must give the title descriptions of the properties. Why would it be necessary for Eskom to give property descriptions of the properties? It's plain and simple. Some of the properties that were sold or allegedly sold to Mr. Dube doesn't even belong to Eskom. So if Eskom draw up a contract, why will they sell amongst their own properties that they don't even own? It looks like a palooka have drawn up that agreement. And Eskom has its own legal team. They won't make a mistake like that. Further, Mr. Andre de Ruyter must report whether Eskom is the registered owner of such properties or whether he's only the lessee. And thirdly, he must report whether it's Eskom that sold the properties or rather one of his employees deciding to sell the properties on her own accord. He must also explain if he alienated. Now, alienated is to move to somebody else. And the word cession by the employee of Eskom is a form of alienated. did Eskom alienate any of his rights by way of this supposed cession? And then did Eskom agree to any contract with Builders One Stop Center, which is the company of Mr. Dube? And so mostly he must come and report on the properties, the ownership of the properties, the cession, this proposed deed of sale of the land, in order for the court to decide how deeply Eskom is involved in this thing. Now, the judge made mention during the proceedings of 16th April 2021 about the PMFA Act. Now, we also looked at it when we investigated this matter, and we were slightly confused about everything because the Public Management Finances Act also manages the finances of Eskom, because Eskom is a state-owned company. They can't manage their finances as they wish. They are under the supervision of the National Treasurer, who looks over all the finances of the country. And if you sell government-owned property, like Eskom's property, it should be done through the National Treasury. And in Section 90 of the Act, it says if you sell property, only the minister, only the minister, it can only be done if the minister has consented to that. So in this regard, there's not even a consent of the Chief Executive Officer of Eskom, less than the National Treasury, and there's no indication that the Minister of Finance were ever involved in this. So it looks as if a very innocent application to secure the tenancy of these people at Redan turned into another can of worms that will be opened soon. We're back in court on 21 May, and it will be very interesting what will happen on that day. But for everybody that was interested about Redan and what's going on in Redan, this is the situation up to date. And I hope it clears up a lot of confusion. And I greet you a nice goodbye. Until later, goodbye.